Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second Financially Speaking webinar, our second episode. We're excited to have you join us. Before we do anything, would like to open in a word of prayer. Father, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to gather again to empower each other on financial matters. We thank you for this opportunity to serve your people in this manner. We give you all the praise and the glory and the honor in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, we've opened in a word of prayer, and we just want to thank the leadership of the church for the opportunity to serve at this level. We are grateful to the presiding bishop and Ma Bishop Sono for this opportunity. Well, our topic for today is the psychology of savings. We are concluding, on the questions that had been raised at the Woman of Destiny celebration that we had on the 9th of August. In last month's episode, we were responding to questions under the wealth protection pillar. And today we're going to respond to those questions that were posed under the wealth creation pillar. And of course, I brought back the same speakers who were engaging around the topic at the Women of Destiny event. So before we even get into the business of today, I'd like to do our normal disclaimer to say that this is a financial literacy session. It is not advice. We are not giving advice. If you require advice, please speak to a certified financial planner. And so today, we just want to say to you that wealth creation is a psychology, and savings is the building block of wealth creation. So we need to do it right. And so for us, we needed to just give a context around this psychology of savings and wealth creation before we can go into the products. As you would note, at church, we've just been taught about faith as being a principle, the currency or the tool of trade in the kingdom of God that gives us access. So, understanding the principles of wealth creation, the psychology of money, is also a currency or a tool of trade towards financial freedom. So towards the end of our talk, we will definitely talk about tax-free savings account, and we'll try and respond to those questions that you had asked us. So for today, my guests are Sisa Tsikido Nkatu. She is the head of retail investments at Nedbank. She holds a BA in communication, a postgraduate diploma in marketing, and a master's in business administration and MBA. And my second guest is Refilwe Mufukeng, who is a behavioral economist or analyst at Standard Bank. She holds a degree and an honors in finance and economics. Well, she's also a past recipient of the Grace Bible Church Achievers Award, a member of our church. And isn't it amazing just to see how far she's come? And today she's here to empower us. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Wendy.
Thank you, Mawins. Good evening to
Okay, so let's
everyone and
go.
good evening to the viewers.
Yeah, let's go straight into it. Sisa, let's start with you. What do we mean when we talk about the psychology of money and saving?
Sure, Mawins. This topic is so close to my heart because I've seen such sad stories when it comes to money, and I always try and make light of it. And I say, if you've watched I Blew It, a
Hmm.
series about where people get lots of money um, handed to them and they lose it all, and they themselves cannot explain how they lost it all, right? So it's really not about accessing money, but it's the wisdom around money.
Mm,
Um, and since we're talking about kingdom principles, we spoke in the Bible. Um, King Solomon asks for wisdom, not for money, right?
mm,
Because with the wisdom, you can apply that wisdom to money. You can apply it to so many things in life to create wealth, to then also sustain wealth, and to then build it. So when we talk about the psychology of savings, we're talking about really what is it mentally that you think about when you think about money. Is it a lack mentality? Is it a matter of you need to hoard because you're too scared that there won't be more? Most of us in our homes growing up, we didn't hear much about money. Nothing other than personally, nothing other than money doesn't grow on trees or haya namali, you know. Never. Um, this is how I'm going to make it happen. This is how I'm going to ensure that your future, my future, is going to be secured. So I think a lot of us, and I'll talk mostly to black people. We've been so secretive about money and so scared around money. We've seen poverty around so much, and unfortunately, it becomes a cycle where we then abuse money because we want to impress. I always say, in my 20s, I bought a car to impress people I didn't even like, and that was a psychology that I
sure.
had to unwind mentally because I needed to firstly accept myself. Secondly, understand that money is a tool. Money
Mm,
is an enabler. Money is not a god. Money is not something to hoard. Money is an enabler. You need to ensure, though, that you have a strategy of what it is that you're enabling in the back of your mind or in your psychology to say the
mm,
reason why I'm parting with this money is because I'm growing it. The reason why I'm parting with this money is because I'm doing something that is significant. So we need to also be very cognizant and aware around money because we also do the mindless spending, mindless engagements with money. We don't treat money with love. And I say love because I know in the church we say the love of money is the root of all evil. And for me, love equates um, respect and regard. So when you
mm,
respect something and you have regard for it, I think this is a prayer that I usually say whenever my salary comes into my account is Lord, give me the wisdom on how
mm,
to treat this money, this seed. I think we all know the parable of the 10 talents. The
mm,
guy who got five, the three, and the two, and the one who buried the talents and really hoarded them, could not grow them, and he was called wicked
mm,
because he could not do what God had actually empowered him to do with what he'd given. So I think it's very important to be very mindful when we are dealing with money. It's
mm.
easy. I'll go back to my example around the I Blew It series. I always laugh, as sad as it is, but I always laugh at this point where everyone is always surprised when they get that notification that says insufficient funds from millions. I'm like, but that notifications have been coming the whole time, you know? But this is how we treat money. We're like, I don't want to look, I don't want to budget. I do this mental maths and accounting that doesn't really make sense. We're not sure. Most people don't even know how much they earn, and it's
Mm.
such a private thing. And if you challenge me and say it's not private, I would challenge everyone on this call who's watching to post to us how much they earn. No one's going to do that. That's how
Yeah.
personal and private it is. So I think we should treat it with the regard and respect that we treat personal and private things.
Sure. Okay. And when we talk also, thanks, Sisa, for that. And I always say that money reciprocates. If you treat it well, it will treat you well. And
Truly.
if you don't treat it well, then it will give you the opposite. But also when we talk about the psychology of money, I mean, it has to do with the way that we think, which is what you've touched on. Our emotions are also involved, in wealth creation, and are behavioral factors. There are behavioral factors as well that involved. So we'll just unpack those a little. So, I mean, I just want to know, what do our emotions have to do with wealth creation, or saving or investing? How do they enable us or even sabotage our financial goals? And I mean, any one of you can answer.
Hi, also, Mom Wendy. Good evening
Ah,
to everyone. I'd like to take this question.
yeah.
Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's such an honor and a privilege. So I greet you all in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, right? So we are talking on how do our emotions influence our savings and investment choices. And something I want us to understand or have an awareness of is that the part of our brains that's responsible for emotions
Mm,
reacts or responds to stimuli a lot quicker than the part of our brain that's responsible for rational thinking. So when
mhm,
we are faced with any situation, our emotional brain reacts to it first. So by the time you get to actually thinking, your
mhm,
emotions have already set the tone for your decision, right?
mm,
So, in other words, we don't decide, then feel. We feel, then we justify our decisions afterwards. So when our emotional state is high, our brain then defaults to short term emotional relief over long term rational planning.
mm,
So it's just important for us to be aware that our emotions actually drive a lot of our financial behavior. So
mm,
some of these might be fear and anxiety, right? And Cisa touched on this. So when we experience a heightened state of fear and anxiety, what then that does is that our brain will treat it as a physical threat. So when we experience a threat, our brain either goes into flight, fight, or freeze mode.
mm,
So this might look like avoidance of our financial reality. So we might avoid opening up our bills or our statements. We might withdraw money to keep it close. We
mm,
might avoid saving because what if I need that money? We
mm,
might procrastinate or it might lead to decision paralysis. When
mm,
we are stressed or overwhelmed, we have a tendency to then seek out emotional spending for relief. So that's when you might find yourself just clearing your card to get that nice piece of shoe. And you will justify that by saying, I deserve this after this day I've had. So
mm,
we just justify that to soothe the emotion that we are feeling at that moment. And then when we
mm,
consider an emotion such as shame, what shame does, or to the brain rather, it makes it sort of retreat and withdraw to
mm,
avoid any social exposure,
mm,
right? So what that then does is that it creates in us this feeling or sense of needing to be silent, needing to hide or avoid our debt, not seeking out the help that we need, or pretending that everything is fine. Right. And then
mm,
we have greed or reward
mm,
anticipation. And
mm,
our brain really loves the rush of an anticipated reward over delaying the gratification. Right. So we might make some impulsive spending or take
mm,
unnecessary risk or fall victim or fall for get rich quick schemes, right?
mm,
Or if we are surrounded by everything that we are seeing on our timelines, it's just people buying stuff. And because now we are experiencing the social pressure, it might lead to impulsive spending to fit in or to feel seen. But what I want to highlight here is that emotions aren't the enemy. We are human. And you touched on this, Mom Wendy, when we were speaking about the psychology of money, right? What
mm,
goes into it is, yes, our beliefs, but also our emotions. So our emotions are part of who we are. We are human. So emotions
mm,
are part and parcel. So they're not an enemy. But unmanaged emotions are, right? We
mm,
aren't purely rational people. So when you are considering putting together a financial strategy, the most effective financial strategies actually work with our emotions and not against them. So when you're experiencing fear and anxiety, for an example, what that requires is a sense of safety. So you can create that sense of safety by building in buffers, and these buffers can look like
mm,
having emergency savings fund, because you know that when that unexpected expense comes up, and they do come up, because it's life, then
mm,
this emergency savings then creates a sense of calm to your nervous system. When you regulate your emotions before spending, then you can make your decision with a clear head. When you are looking to make an impulsive purchase, taking pause, like a 10-second pause, giving your rational thinking brain a moment to catch up. Identify what is the emotion I'm feeling right now. Is this purchase meeting a real need, or is it an emotional need that I'm addressing? Or asking, will this bring me closer or move me further from my financial goals? Right, and these are
Mm.
some of the tools that we can use.
Wow. So, Bahe, so you've just heard it from the experts. It's not a question of taking your purse and your card and walking into a store. Honestly, the emotions that are attached there, and we have to be so aware of our emotions because there are positive and there are negative emotions. When Refilo was talking about the fact of that shame can make you try and you know avoid your debts. I remember in the olden days, this really then talks about my age. When you had debt, they used to send us letters. You'd get a pink letter, which is a calm color, that says, hey, you know what, I'm sure you forgot to pay. And we would never open those letters. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd throw them in the bin, because of the shame. And then they would send you a blue one. Blue is a bit stronger, to say, Hela, you haven't paid, and throw it in the bin. And then, of course, you'd get the red one. And the red one is literally telling you that you are in trouble. And of course, we would throw that, hoping that the debt would disappear as you throw the envelopes into the dustbin, but of course it would remain. Now, Sisa, let's talk about, let's just build on this context, the money stories that we grew up with. You mentioned, that money doesn't grow on trees. If you hear that every day, then that becomes your narrative that shapes your money personality. So I just want us to talk around maybe some of the motivators, looking at our context, our money personalities, and what are some of the motivators that can really help us, to save, maybe to feel secure, as Refilo was saying, for our future goals and our independence.
So, Mawins, I think, and Refilwe, thank you so much for touching on the emotional part, and that's what I was referring to when I said I bought a car to impress people
Mm,
I didn't even like,
mm,
and I knew they didn't like me.
mm,
But what did it do? It validated me in my world, right? For the first time, no one could tell me ayikho imali.
mm,
You know what I mean? I was like, actually, mina ngizoyenza ibe khona. And I didn't need that car. I was in my early 20s. I bought a big sedan. And then I hated it. And I
mm,
was miserable because also that's what impulsiveness does, right? Impulsiveness, unfortunately, is such a short-term gratification thing. That's why I was
mm,
saying that it's important, and Rufina put it very nicely where she says, stop and pause. And that's when you engage your cognitive thinking to say, do I want this or do I want to need it?
mm,
So for me, practically how I do that is I take my money that I'm going to save and I put it in a notice deposit account, right? And I automate that. So to the reference that was made earlier as well around, if you have anxiety about money and something that may happen, and we all need emergency savings, like your tire is probably going to burst on the month that you've got so many things that's going on. Someone's going to pass away, you have to contribute. Something is going to happen where you need to access money.
mm,
But is that the money that you want to put at risk by leaving in your check account? The answer is no.
mm,
Do you want to also be able to easily access it?
mm,
So manje usesentini nayiseyili, and you start to convince yourself, two for the price of one. That time, none for the price of none is better than the two for the price of one.
mm,
Consider that this Black Friday as well, as you say, it's 25% off. 25% of you're still paying the 75% that you probably haven't budgeted for,
mm,
unless you budgeted for it.
mm,
And protect your money. I always say protect your money from yourself.
All right.
So I generally I automate my money to go into a 24-hour notice. I automate my money to go into a 32-day notice, for instance, for things that are inevitable, but they're not too urgent. 24 hours is more urgent
Mm,
than anything, but also it gives me time to think.
mm,
I need to walk away from the store
mm,
and think about whether or not this is something I want. Also, because I may be sad in the moment, something's happened and I feel like I need to validate myself. God, these shoes that I don't need because I've got a million. And online shopping has also become such a beast, right? Because it's so you're here in the middle of the night, yeah, instead of sleeping, you're thinking, oh, no, I saw the ad on TikTok. Let me go and buy it.
mm,
And you don't think. But if you've got that buffer of 24 hours,
mm,
you've got a day to say to yourself, do I really need this?
mm,
And actually, while you're even putting in the notice, you're thinking, do I really want to risk what I've actually planned this money for? So it's also very important to align your money with a goal,
mm,
right? Extremely important.
mm,
And I think another thing that we really need to train ourselves to do is make it easy for ourselves to part with money. What do I mean by that? It's difficult to, like, there's nothing that sometimes pains me more than transferring money from my account into another account. To your point, Mawens, the envelopes, when you're thinking, now my money must go and must leave and go to this person to go and pay off
mm,
my debt, right? So automate it for yourself. Set up, and I know a lot of banking apps have this functionality. Our
mm,
banking app at NetBank, for instance, you're able to automate your savings monthly into your savings, any investment or savings account, and set up a stop order. Other people use the strategy of having multiple accounts. That could be costly though, because every single account has an account maintenance fee. So think about the fees as well. But if you
mm,
do link your savings accounts to your transactional account, whether it's a check account or a debit card or a savings account, you're still able to transfer money into a notice deposit account where you are making it easy for yourself by automating. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think 25 if uhola 25 that, oh my goodness, is that, do I really want to do it? What if, hey, and in these months I call them the bars. These months
mm,
of the bars.
mm,
Nice. It's nice to be out there. It's nice to be doing things. And if you leave that money there, believe me, you are not protecting it from yourself. And I always say to people, while you are living, let your money be growing. You are doing yourself a huge injustice if your money is sitting and not earning any type of interest. While you're sleeping, let your money
mm.
be growing.
Yeah.
Make sure that you use time as your ally.
Right. Okay. So before we get into the product itself and talk about maybe the tax-free savings, which is what people asked us, Rufino, you touched a little bit when you were talking about instant gratification, that present bias. These are the behavioral sciences, concepts that really help us to think around, why do people want to satisfy their immediate needs over future needs. So maybe just talk to us about this present bias and how we can circumvent that. And while you are at it, you can also just touch on loss aversion, and just tell us about these principles so that we become aware, because they've got such an impact on how we save and invest. If we don't master those, then our savings journeys are not going to take off. We'll be those people that save, and then tomorrow when there's emergency, you go for the money.
All right, no, thank you so much, Mom Wins. So, as you were saying, right, our financial decisions are not to what people like to believe, that they are driven by the amount of money that's actually on your account, that balance. A lot goes into it, and a lot of it is these automated mental shortcuts that our brains use to save time and energy, right? So these are what we term, from a behavioral economics perspective, heuristics, which are mental shortcuts or rules of thumbs that our brain uses to make quick decisions with minimal effort. So an example of that would be, if everyone is doing it, then it must be right, so I'm going to do it.
Mm,
And then a cognitive bias is those predictable and repetitive systematic errors in judgment, right? These happen when our heuristics are interacting with our emotions, our memories, those social influences. So Sisa mentioned it, like, for example, spending more because of that sale, even if you weren't intending on buying, but because it's there and they're saying now only or today only, now you feel that urgency to go buy, right? And it's important to be aware of these because these mental patterns often operate at a level that is below our conscious awareness. So they shape how we spend, how we save, how we invest. And Mom Wins, actually, there's over 180 of them that have been discovered. So I do encourage people to go do some reading. But I will speak to a few. So the one that you mentioned is present bias. I'd like to couple this with hyperbolic discounting. Right. And what this says is that now feels a lot more real than later.
Yeah.
So, what that is saying is that as people, we have this tendency to overvalue our immediate rewards and undervalue our future benefits. And this leads to time inconsistent preferences. So, because you are seeing your immediate needs now, you might say, actually, let me withdraw from my retirement annuity. Let me take advantage of that two-part system, withdraw now. And then when you are at 60 or retirement age, you'd be like, "Ugh, I have 30 years to live now. I regret that decision, or I shouldn't have." And it's why a lot of us aren't saving or investing, because that is a time that is too far from now. So I need this now, I want this now, so then I will buy, right? And it makes sense because if we consider, our brains are wired for short-term survival. So it makes sense us wanting to address the need now, but it's important for us to pause and actually say there is a tomorrow. So let me make a decision that will benefit my future self, right? And one way to overcome that is what Lisa mentioned, automating those debit orders into your savings to take away the thinking that's required, because it is painful. And I will speak to why it's painful just now to actually make that transfer, Sisa. And so the second one is mental accounting, right? What this speaks to is that we treat money differently depending on where it comes from. So we have a tendency to categorize our money into different buckets. So we have salary, we have bonuses, that tax rebate, a gift that you might get, somebody, that's free. And then you might consider that as free money. Right. And it makes it easier for you to spend this free money than that salary. Right. And it can be a shortfall, but there's a way to make that work for you. And I will touch on that a bit later. So, but it's important here is to treat all money that we receive as income, because then we are more intentional about how we spend the money that we actually worked hard for. The third one is loss or risk aversion. Right.
Yes.
And what this tells us is that losing hurts a lot more than winning feels. So if I were to misplace or lose 1,000 Rand today, empirically, if we were to quantify that, we would say you would feel the pain of losing that 1,000 Rand twice as much as you would feel from gaining an equivalent 1,000 Rand. Like that joy, it won't feel as good as the pain of losing that 1,000 Rand. And what this then does is that it makes us a little averse to saving and investing, right? And it then leads us to keeping our money in low return accounts because we are keeping it for safety. We don't want to lose our money. We don't want to risk, the fluctuations of the market, because we see that as a loss. And when the market dips a little bit, we're just like, we feel that pain a little bit more, right? So again, it leads to irrational decision making. And then the next one would be herd behavior or social proofing. So we are wired for people. That's just how we are. Like belonging is an inherent, intrinsic human desire. So what this means is that we look to others to decide on what to do, especially when we are uncertain. Like if we do not know what we need to do in the situation, we will do what other people around us are doing. So the danger here is that if you find yourself in circles where nobody's speaking about money, nobody's speaking about savings, nobody's speaking about investment, then you are less likely to actually invest and save.
Yeah.
because that is your reference group. And if your reference
Mm.
group is not doing it, then you're less likely to
Yeah.
then do it. And the
Yeah.
last one I want to touch on, Mom Wins, is status quo bias and
Mm-hmm.
inertia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So status quo bias simply says that as people, we have a tendency to keep on doing what we know. And
Mm-hmm.
inertia
Yeah.
simply speaks to the fact that doing nothing is easier, right? So
Mm.
if I, as a refueler, know that I'm keeping my money in a savings account and the savings account generates low income, low returns,
Mm.
chances are I'm going to keep my money in that account. Even
Mm.
if moving the money to another account might be beneficial to me. And the reason for this is because change is cognitively expensive, right? And our
Mm.
brains don't like to do things that require effort. Right, they
Mm.
want to conserve as much mental energy as possible. So it makes it a bit difficult to just take that step. So a way to overcome this is just doing small changes to
Mm.
manage that resistance. And once you have
Mm.
built that habit, then it makes it easier to actually migrate and shift.
Awesome. Wow. That was a lot, Bahesu. I think for a Sunday afternoon, what we've learned here about the psychology of money is mind blowing, you know. And one of the things that you mentioned that really touched me on my studio is the two-pot system. And I think we'll have a separate episode where we're going to talk about the two-pot system, especially when when we were talking about the fact that we prioritize short-term needs versus long-term, and we don't know the impact that the instant gratification will have in the long term. As someone who is retired, I can understand some of these principles. So I think without any further ado, there's so much we can talk about with the psychology of savings, but I'd like us to now get into responding to some of the questions that were asked, because we were talking about tax-free savings. And so I'm going to ask Cesar to just take us through, Uguti, what is a tax-free saving investment and why was it introduced?
Oh, Lorenz, you're speaking to my soul when you speak about this product, and I think you know how passionate I am about it.
Yeah.
I always say, if you're a South African who does not have a tax-free savings or tax-free investment, you are really doing yourself a disservice.
Mm.
You are doing yourself a disservice because this is the only account, and I'll talk to the different types of tax frees, but essentially the concept of the tax free is the only account where you can put money away, and the interest that you earn is untaxable. So in South Africa, if you are under the age of 60, I
Mm-hmm.
think your and you earn interest above the amount of 26,000, you are then liable for paying tax, which is capital gains tax. And then if you're older, I think that cap goes up to just over 35,000, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if you are someone who is saving in a tax-free savings, and I mentioned briefly earlier that use time as your ally.
Mm.
And I cringe when I sometimes see financial services providers positioning a tax-free as the account you're going to use to pay for someone's wedding,
Mm.
or the account you're going to use for later when you want to access money to buy a property, etc. And perhaps because a property is an investment, is something that's a bit better to then spend money on. But the tax-free savings system was introduced by the government because they knew and they saw how poorly South Africans save.
Mm.
As an account, you are allowed to contribute 36,000 rand per year. Above 36,000 that you put in tax-free savings, any responsible financial institution should notify you that you have over contributed, and please withdraw those funds. or not allow you at all to over contribute, which is what we do at Nedbank. We don't allow you at all to over contribute because the over contribution is taxed at 40%, which is very, very high. And you have a lifetime contribution of 500,000. Now, 500,000 might seem like a lot, but if you put 3,300 in that account every single month, you get to 36,000. And if you do that for a good 14 years, and I think we did this calculation a few years ago where we had an interest rate of 8% on our tax-free savings account and tax-free fixed deposit. And we calculated that after 14 years, you'd be sitting at 1.5 million, because firstly, you're using time as your ally. What does that mean? You're using the power of compounding of interest. So the interest that you earn, you don't take it out, you don't use it, you don't touch that money, you treat it like a fund that is going to empower your future. If you can contribute 500,000 in your lifetime, by the time you are done with contributing the 500,000, you'll be sitting at 1.5 million. Now imagine if you leave that money again for another 10 years and you allow it to compound and give yourself an ally, which is time. You will be sitting at 3-5 million, depending on either the fund that you're invested in or in the product that you invested in. So you will get tax-free savings accounts with banks. Most banks offer them. I think the minimum contribution at most banks is around 250 Rand a month. So you don't have to start very high. You can invest in tax-free savings as a fixed deposit. Remember, a fixed deposit, you can't add to it. So you would need to either contribute the full 36,000 to a fixed deposit, or know that whatever it is you're putting into that fixed deposit is the fixed deposit, and then you can have a tax-free savings running on the side. There are tax-free investments that are underpinned by unit trusts, and you know that, I think most of us know that unit trusts are backed by various sort of investment vehicles, whether it's property, whether it's investing in money offshore, different sort of structures that support that, and there are different funds that unit trusts are invested in, and they are. Mawen spoke and Refila spoke to being risk averse. So there are funds where you can go in aggressively. I recently changed one of my funds to 50% offshore and 50% within the country, and it was a more aggressive fund because I've got time. So that's another conversation that you need to have with your financial services provider or a proper financial advisor. There are various platforms. For instance, we were having a conversation earlier with Mawens where we spoke about easy equities, where they kind of alert you that, you know what, if you don't have 20 years to invest, perhaps this is not the right fund for you to underpin your investment. So please also empower yourself. I think being risk averse is okay, but I think empower yourself by aligning the time that you have with your risk appetite. So if you only have 10 years to invest, or have funds coming into your account in the form of a salary, and you're approaching retirement, you might want to be less risky and put your funds into an account that is either an unbalanced sheet product, which is essentially a product where you put in money, you earn interest. There's no risk of your capital being eroded. So if you put in 36,000, you'll always get 36,000 plus, say, 8%. You won't ever get less than 36,000. Put your money into, say, shares, ETFs, unit trusts, etc. Depending on the fund that you're in, it might not perform as well as you want to, depending on how risky it is, and depending on the time that you have. Because if you've got time, then you can allow the markets to go through the cycle, churn out the bad investments, churn in the good investments. You've got 20 years, go in more aggressive. You shouldn't be in a fixed deposit. You shouldn't be in a savings account. If you are older, this is also not a product for young people only. Please, guys, if you are approaching retirement or you are in your retirement years, you can still afford to put money away. If you are perhaps living off of your interest from your pension fund, etc., please back yourself and put money away. You've also got a legacy to leave. I know that as South Africans, we are really pinched financially. A lot of individuals approaching retirement have older children that they're still taking care of, they're living at home, etc. But like I say, future proof your money by automating your savings, and future proof your money by ensuring that it is earning interest. Because money,
Yes.
100 Rand today, I made an example the other day on a podcast, and I said, I remember being sent to the shop with a 1 Rand coin. I was little, and I couldn't close my hand around this 1 Rand coin. And I'd go to the shop, and I'd come back with, I think, bread and milk at the time. And I don't look it, but I've been around a while. So this 1 Rand coin, guys, I don't think Refilo even knows it. You couldn't close your hand with this 1 Rand coin.
Mm.
And you go to the shop and you come back with something. Now try and do that with 1 Rand today. I don't think you can even get a cut by Rizwi 5 for that matter.
Mm.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So your money is not going to be the same value in 10 years' time as it is today. So future proof your money. And lastly, do not open a tax-free investment account for your child under your own name, because every contribution that you are putting in goes to you and your profile. Or you can open up a tax-free in the name of your child. I have a 2-year-old who currently has a tax-free savings account. What I've done I've made it also very fun when people want to buy her Christmas presents or they want to buy her birthday gifts. I'm like, whatever you were going to spend on her, take that money and put it in her tax-free savings, because you're actually paying her future self. She's got
Mm.
toys. I'll talk about toys that you see at Toys R Us or all these shops where a little doll is 600 Rand, and my kid is going to take
Mm.
that doll. The head will be on one side. By the end of the day, the body will be on the other side. Really try and future proof the future of our kids and really
Mm.
invest in them. You can do that, and then
Yeah.
you're also enabling them to have the benefit of time, so that when they do get to say 30 and they do want to buy a house, they can withdraw a little bit from that money, and then they can pay a deposit. And
Sure.
lastly, just to remember, whatever you take out of your tax-free savings, so if you've contributed 36,000 and you take out 6,000, that 6,000 still counts to your lifetime contribution of 500,000. So you can't get it back. So
Mm.
I encourage you, until you get to your 500,000 lifetime contribution limit, don't withdraw from your tax-free. Allow it to grow and let time be your ally. If I can leave you with anything, with investing and savings, time is your ally, and compounding of interest is what you need.
Okay. So you've said a mouthful. You've said so many things, right? But I think I want us to just go back, because
Yeah.
I really want us to give, the people that are watching, the real nitty gritties of the tax-free account, so that when we switch off here tomorrow, they can go and open a tax-free account, understanding that the minimum is 250, the maximum is 36,000 per annum, and then you can contribute until you get to 500,000, which is 500,000. And I loved the calculation that you did, that if you were to leave that 500,000 for about 8 years, it can grow to up to 1.5 million. But now, why didn't we know about these things a long time ago? Why didn't they introduce it then? So, Bahesu, as you are watching, this means that, make sure that you do not exceed the 36,000 per annum, because if you do, then you will be charged that 40% penalty. Remember, when you have invested the money, when you withdraw it, you will not pay tax. You will not, Akir Sisa, you won't
Correct.
pay
You will
tax
not
on it.
pay capital gains tax.
Yes, on the money when you withdraw it. Now, there was a question in the last time. People were saying, okay, can I open multiple tax-free accounts? Maybe I open one at Capitec, one at Standard Bank, because maybe one at African Bank, one at Nedbank, one at Standard Bank, because I've looked at the interest that they are paying, and I think here it's higher, there it's higher. Can I have multiple accounts, tax-free accounts, but still try and be within the 36,000? Is there a benefit, or is it just tedious?
You absolutely
Mm.
can open multiple tax-free savings accounts. but you
Mm,
should not contribute more than 36,000 Rand a year, right?
mm,
Also,
mm,
remember, interest rates are generally tiered, especially with
mm,
bank products. So
mhm,
if you're going to contribute 500 here, 2,000 there, you're doing yourself a disservice actually. Pick one with a bank if you're going to do that, a tax-free savings account, and make
mm,
sure that your maximum contribution is earning you the maximum interest. What do I mean
mm,
by tiered? If you put in 500 Rand, it's not the same. You won't earn the same interest as someone that puts in the 36,000, right?
mm,
You are earning interest still, but you're probably on the lower band of the interest tiers.
mm,
So you want to put your money in a place where when it's cumulative, you are earning the best interest rate. Another strategy that people will use is, say you put in, what's half of 36,000? Half of 36,000 in a tax-free savings account with the bank, while half goes into, say, a unit trust-based tax-free, right? So you are diversifying
mm,
your investment, as
mm,
long as it is not above the threshold of 36,000 per year. And
mm,
Mawens, the 500,000, it's that 1.5 million does not come after you've contributed the 500,000. It
mm,
literally comes if you are contributing continuously with that 36,000 up until you get to that 500,000. By the time
mm,
you've contributed 500,000, if you've leveraged the interest at a maximum interest, I think that at the time it was between 8 and 10%. You've leveraged that interest, you will be sitting at 1.5, or while you've only contributed 500,000. That's why I'm saying
mm,
give yourself the value of time when you are
mm,
talking tax-free savings. A tax-free
mm,
savings is not an account where you use when you want to go and have an emergency fund. That is not
mm,
your emergency fund account. This is
mm,
a long-term savings plan for
mm.
yourself
Yeah. And
or your child.
yeah, and basically, I mean, when we talk about um it growing exponentially, like you've explained, it's because you are allowing the interest and on top
Compound.
of the amount, and it's interest upon interest upon interest without touching it. That's when the money will grow exponentially. I think that's very important. That's, they call it the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest. Sometimes I wish they could have taught us about that at school instead of telling us that a locust has got compounding eyes. They could have just taught us about compounding interest. So, Bahesu, as you are listening to us right now, time time is of essence, allowing the investment to stay on for a long time without you touching it. That's when you see the benefit of the money growing exponential. I think that is very, very important. Okay, and seeing that we have kids, you just gave us an example. You've got a 2-year-old, and you are saying that and I know it was her birthday and I wanted to buy her something, and you said no, take the money and put it in her tax-free account. Now, this, are you saying that this is also a good investment, that you can put for your child while they are 2 years old? You actually contribute every year for them, 36, you're allowing the interest to grow. By the time they reach 18, they are actually millionaires because the money is growing while they are going to crash, going to school, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mawens. And I just
Mm.
like to quickly touch on the concept of compounding interest, right? And if I could
Yeah.
synthesize it and make it very simple, it's
Mm.
like your money having money babies. So how long does it
Yeah.
take to have a baby? It takes 9 months. It does not
Mm-hmm.
matter. It does not matter how quickly you want it to go. It's gonna take 9 months to have a healthy baby, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
giving your money the benefit of time to have a healthy
Mm.
baby, right? And
Mm.
then you give that money enough time to have more healthy babies. So it's your
Mm.
money having babies and their babies having babies, and you
Right.
really populating. your
Mm.
investment, if I can I can make it a little bit more simple. And we
Yeah.
talk, and I mean, I think it's also a kingdom principle about putting away money, right? We know about the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of lack. There are periods of lack in our lives. So
Mm.
do yourself a favor, in the years of plenty, put the money away. So if it is the 15 years that you're able to do it, and you might skip a year for your child, etc., but for yourself, ensure
Mm.
that you're trying to put away the 36,000 rand a year, because you're going to need it in the years of lack, where you are not earning as much money as you used to. You do not
Mm.
have the access to earn that much money. You've retired. And I'm even talking to youth and
Mm.
I'm talking to
Mm.
us now,
Mm.
where you can't just do ivosho or anymore just willy-nilly,
Mm.
because the knee goes like this, but you still look good. And if you've hit 40, I'm saying you need to be considering your retirement. And we touched on the two-pot system. The only
Mm.
winner in that case, and I know we're struggling, but I'm not passing any judgment. To please do see my heart. I know that sometimes you need to pay school fees and you need to pay things off, but the only winner in that system is the taxman, and never you. So please do think about it very, very carefully. And then the last bit
Mm.
was around
Okay.
securing a future
Yeah.
for a child. Sorry, sorry, Mama. It's just in terms of the concept of, I'll ask you, on your 5th birthday, if you are 40 like me, do you remember what you got? The answer is no. I don't know who bought me a toy. I don't know who bought me shoes. And I'm not saying those things are not important. Please don't get me wrong. Hence, when when I said, I shared this with very close friends and family, I said, guys, feel free to buy her anything you want. But my heart, if you were to see my heart, it says, take whatever money you are going to buy, use to buy anything, and whatever is welcome. Take it and put it into this
Mm.
account, because you are investing in her future and you're paying her future self. And think about it like that with yourself as well. Yes, you are delaying the gratification, but you are still going to be you in 20 years. So you are paying it forward.
Mm.
You're paying your future you.
Yeah. So you're investing today for tomorrow. And I think it's one of the principles Borifilwe talk about in behavioral science. I think I'm a behavioral economist,
But
you know.
definitely.
So, you know, one of the questions that was also asked was, does it make sense if I'm indebted? I'm in debt, but I want to save and I have money. What should I be doing? Maybe Refilo, you can take this one. Should I really, or Cesar, should I really take this money? I'm not sleeping at night. The calls are coming in. I'm not making it, but my heart, I really want. I've heard this talk today. I've heard about compounding interest, about the tax-free savings account and investments, but really I'm in debt. Should I take the little money that I have and pay off debt or invest or save?
Yeah, Sisa, can you please take this one?
Sure, sure. So I always say, if you're looking at, I know there's some heavy interest out there on some debt, right? So if you are paying interest of, say, 18% on a credit card or a personal loan,
Mm.
and you in a savings account are going to earn 3%, practically,
Mm.
I would advise you to have a strategy that says, if you've got 1,000 rand, and I'm going to use a simple number, you've got 1,000 rand, and you can pay a little bit extra into your debt with that 1,000 rand. For the principle of trying to get yourself into the habit of savings, I'd say take 200 rand and put in a savings account. But that 800 rand needs to go into your debt, right? And you may have 3 to 4 different types of debts, right? Once you finish this one, and start off with the smallest one, because behavioral economics also teaches us that small wins encourage us to continue a certain behavior. So if you can do it with the small thing, it's like when you've got lots of tasks on your to-do list, take the easiest one, because it gives you the energy to do something else and do something bigger. So take the smallest one. Once you're done with that one, that 800 that now you have, that you have to extra, And 500 that you were paying towards this bill anyway, take that. Now it's what? 1,300, and put it towards the next bill until you get to a point where you're done with your bills. Now, where that comes in, now where the discipline comes in, you're done with the bills. Now you're sitting with an extra 3,000 and that 1,000. You have to. That's why I said the 200 rand needs to go into savings, because you're putting it in your mind that this is something that I need. It's a practice that I need to enable and I need to get into. So then it makes it easier for you to take the extra 3,000 and add it to the 200 and say, okay, how do I now diversify my savings and investment portfolio? I was chatting to the team earlier about a product. It's called excuse proof investing. That's been developed by ETF SA, and if you can find them on etfsa.co.za, where they take 400 rand of your 1,000 rand and they put in a retirement annuity, 300 rand in a tax-free savings, and I think 200 rand goes into a fund where you can easily access it, right? And and you need to find strategies. You need to be deliberate, and you really need to think about your money. That's why I speak about regard and respect. Treat money well, like Mawen
Okay.
said, and it will treat you well as well.
Sure. Okay. We are almost left with less than 5 minutes. And I think I'm going to then say, Sisa, you mentioned something that I really like: when you pay off your debt or when you achieve your savings goals, no matter how small they are. And so I'm here to tell you that you can kickstart your savings journey ka 50 rand or ka 100 rand. You don't need millions. It's a myth. You can start ka 50 rands, and when you achieve something at the end of the year and you look back, then those happy hormones, the dopamines are released, and then you see Guti, I've achieved, and then you want to do more. So in the last few minutes, we literally have 4 minutes. In 1 minute, Refilo, I'd like for you to just give us your closing, and maybe just talk about those nudges. And I just saw such an interesting question where they're saying, can you still save at 67?
Yeah.
I'm 63. Yes, I'm still saving, because as a baby boomer, I have that fear at the back of my mind that my money might run out. So yes, you can. Whoever asks that, I'll respond to them on the side and really just give them some tips. 1 minute, Refilo.
All right. Thank you also so much for listening to us today. I just want to say, I mentioned a lot of these behavioral principles that are driving and influencing our behavior. And it's just important for us, when we're going back to the psychology of money, to really understand those money scripts and those beliefs that we are holding. It's important for us to reflect on those, because those are driving our behavior. If you grew up in scarcity, chances are you are hoarding money. Right? If you grew up saying success means having things, chances are you are overspending when you don't need to. Right? So those things are driving money. So it's important to pause and reflect, what is my money story? And also know you have urgency, you have autonomy to change those scripts. Right? So
Yeah.
if you're believing and saying that I can never have enough, or saving and investing is for people with money, you can actually flip the script to say, what can I do differently that will allow me to achieve my dreams? And as Mama Wen said, you can start where you are at. The importance is to start the habit. Right? So if you can only afford to save 50 Rand a month right now because that's where you are at, that's okay. Start then, because when you have money later on, that habit has already been instilled. Also mentioned a lot.
Baheso, we have a few minutes, Refilo. I need to wrap a round off. Otherwise, we're going to be cut out. But I think we are going to come back and talk more when we look at the other classes of investments, But I just want to leave the people with these words to say, Refilo has just said, start where you are
Yeah.
with what you have. Remember, Bahesu, knowledge is not power, it's potential power. We've given you so much of it. Execution is mastery. Execution supersedes knowledge. And with that, just going to take this time to just close in a word of one that has logged in. Thanks, Sisa and Refilwe. Father, we thank you for time in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that the nuggets that we've shared with you, you will put into practice. Because if you don't do that, I wanted Refilwe to talk about the action intention gap, but we will do it at another time because there's always another time for us to engage around this. Thank you so much. We hope that you found